Tonight, Emotions, Sex, and Power. Sounds like the title of a new bestseller. Sadly, it's not about a book. It's about some female teachers having sex with their male and female students.
You are now listening to The Spearsy Spin with your host, Mike Spears.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to The Spearsy Spin. Tonight, we approach a very controversial subject: students, teachers, and sex in the classroom. Now, I already know that many of you are looking into your radio or your computer screens and asking, what does teachers and sex have to do with politics, Spears? I thought this show dealt with, the Democratic and Republican issues, not about tabloid schmut. What gives? Well, if that is your question, here then is your answer. If we look back over the last 20 years with regard to the number of arrests and convictions of all teachers that have had sex with their students, you most likely would cringe at those figures. Now, eliminating all male teachers from this survey of convicted offenders and focusing only on those female teachers that have had sex with students, you most definitely would cringe at those figures. Convicted female teachers in politics. Well, again, looking back over the last 20 years, we've seen an extreme differential in the way women are thought about in the political arena. Politics, government intrusion, and lack thereof. So, forgetting about political ideology for a minute, let's look at Sarah Palin as a woman for just a moment. Now, Sarah Palin has been able to showcase both beauty and poise as a woman while demonstrating a strong early Western woman on the plains attribute. In short, many would say that she is a woman's woman. Next, again, forgetting political ideologies, let's examine Hillary Clinton. Over the years, as Hillary Clinton has been in the limelight as an attorney, then the wife of a governor, then the wife of a U.S. president, to a New York State senator, to the Secretary of State, and most recently, Democratic nominee for the President of the United States. Hillary Clinton, in photos from especially her early years, she can certainly be considered a beautiful woman. Now, her education and background in law is par plus. She is a good spokesperson and orator, and she's able to deal on local, national, and international issues. And she's regarded by a large majority of women to be a woman for all women. So, here we have two women side by side in our survey. Which one is best suited to represent women's issues? Republican? Democrat? Highly educated, influential, international claim to fame? Or down-home girl with education, political experience, and hunting prowess? Well, the answer is going to surprise you, because the answer is neither, and both of them. Now, leaving political theories out of our thought processes here, I would submit to you the following. Women today have worked very hard to become the new role models that society has subscribed for them. But in my opinion, and that's based on education, fact, and 30 years of both professional and vocational environments in which women represented an 80% majority, that I also worked within that majority, I believe that I can speak to the subject of female teacher-student sexual proclivity. Now, a good age moderate for these female offenders, I believe, is 28, and we'll call this median age group for female offenders exactly that, 28 years of age is about where we're going to look for subject matter here in women. Now, we're not going to identify the political leanings of these women, as our show today is politically unchallenged. Common ground for these women is inclusive of the beauty of Sarah Palin and that of Hillary Clinton. Now, along with this distinction comes the resounding self-assurances that both of these women resonate publicly. And we know that all people resonate a persona of their own, and quite often their persona is in concert with that of their mentor or a person of power that they like, or maybe a public entity. Thus, the extreme compound of social elements have caused women as a whole to become role models for each other.
Back after these messages.
This is Brendan. He never expected to have a foundation created in his name, but then his mother never expected her precious newborn to be diagnosed with a birth defect virus called cytomegalovirus, or CMV. CMV is crippling. Brendan went from what doctors thought was a healthy newborn to one with deafness and brain damage caused by CMV. Brendan's mother learned about CMV to give him the best life possible. Now she wants to help other families avoid this traumatic illness. CMV can be prevented. CMV attacks 1 in 150 babies born in the U.S. 1 in 5 of those babies will suffer lifelong disability. CMV disables more children than Down syndrome and fetal alcohol syndrome. Get the facts. Learn how to protect your unborn child. Visit cmvfoundation.org.
Today, the mainstream media gets their facts wrong. Those leaning far left aren't happy with the status quo. Americans have never seen this much disinformation being disseminated. Watch the news, then listen to The Spearsy Spin with political commentator Mike Spears. The Spearsy Spin, now on Google, Twitter, Facebook, thespearsyspin.blogspot.com, and YouTube. Many listeners refer to Mike Spears as the new Walter Cronkite.
Extreme pressure has been leveled against women to become more than a woman, more than a mother, more than a lover, a spouse, a breadwinner, and yes, in many instances, even a father. In my opinion, I feel that women as a whole have been manipulated to wear so many different hats that many times they have forgotten who they even are. They start out as someone's daughter, then someone's girlfriend, then someone's wife, and then someone's mother, and ultimately, usually, someone's caregiver. That doesn't leave hardly any space for today's woman to just be herself. Now, let me be clear. Any woman today should be equal with men with regard to any and all facets of life. I don't feel that women should have to succumb to being a pre-described ideologue just to be in concert with the societal demands made upon women today. So, why are we seeing female teachers sexually acting out with students more than ever? Well, allow me a moment for which to adorn my psychology hat and attempt to regale you with substantive theory and belief. Well, when confronted with the issue of sex between an adult and a child, there is, of course, the initial mindset of pedophilia. In short, pedophilia can best be described as an obtuse perversion where an adult lives with sexual fantasies of engaging in sexual constructs with children. While pedophilia is for the most part a psychological disorder, there are some in the field of psychology today who believe pedophiles suffer from an inert physiomental disease that is teeter-tottered between one's distressed brain physiology and one's mental precognition of socially acceptable practices. Also, we know today that 1 out of 3 women will or have been sexually molested or assaulted. We're able to see in mental health that for some female teachers, their abuse suffered as a child, and of course now that suffrage has become a transient precursor for the abused female teacher to become the perpetrator. That is the circle of abuse. Next, we look at what is known as a narcissistic sexual pervert. Now, this is not the actual clinical definition, and that would take too much time to put this all into a tasty, palatable, piece of candy that you can just kind of, well, I guess I can taste that. All right. So in this instance, the narcissist is consumed by a never-ending hunger for even more power. And in the world today, the 2 best icons that represent what the narcissist truly needs is money and power. But for some, this does not quell the narcissist's hunger for both power and control. So now enter the narcissist's need for deviant sexual activity, and here it deals with underage students. Well, we know that power is a driving force behind many things in life, and that can be both good and bad, but power for some is actually confused with their own insecurity. Now, moving on, stay with me here. The issue of teachers, students, and sex. Okay? In this role, the teacher is, for the most part, operating with an extreme false sense of bravado. In fact, these insecurities can actually become a sustainable phobia, which, if left unchecked, can become a mental construct of sorts, whereas the extreme insecurities of that teacher are interrupted by what can best be described as a proxy persona.
Hi folks. Times we live in today are scary. Religious freedoms under fire, racial divide never more evident, political powers fighting, foreign countries looking to exploit our country, news media reporting unfair on issues, folks searching out the truth. I listen to the news, then I listen to the Spearsy Spin. Mike Spears has experience, education, determination, and grit to get what's going on in our country. Listen to Mike Monday through Friday. I'll listen. Hope you'll be listening too.
The AIDS Drug Assistance Program is a bipartisan program designed to make sure that people in need living with HIV/AIDS in America can receive the drugs they must have to stay alive. But present economic problems have stretched this program beyond its ability to meet the rising need. So thousands of Americans languish on growing waiting lists, not knowing if tomorrow will bring help or sickness. And while they wait, they get sicker. They cost taxpayers billions in lost productivity and prolonged hospital stays, and some will die. Is that moral? Is that American? Does that make any sense? Contact your member of Congress today and ask them to fully fund the AIDS Drug Assistance Program. Let's end the waiting lists. This time, it really is a matter of life or death. For more information, contact the ADAP Advocacy Association at info@adapadvocacyassociation.org.
Now, within this persona, certain attributes prevail. In our discussion here, the need to sustain that persona and to push back against that original fear within this teacher of those insecurities ultimately pushes this persona by proxy to act out in a controlling and quite often demeaning manner. In short, you could size this up with the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde scenario. And finally, there is lots of credible evidence to support the theory that some women teachers, especially those approaching 30 years of age, develop feelings of lost youth and disappointment. Many convicted female teachers, while in counseling, have explained to therapists that, well, early on, way before there was anything physical, the teacher would find herself fantasizing about one of her students. Now, while this happens a bit more frequently than you'd suspect, most teachers are able to satisfy their fantasy needs at home. However, for those with the issues we just discussed, the fantasy becomes a need, and then a hunger, and finally a surrender. Now, are there double standards for female teachers having sex with students? Well, a Massachusetts police chief certainly thinks so when he recently recalled a 2004 investigation into a sexual relationship between a 30-year-old English teacher and a 16-year-old boy at the school. Now, he claimed the authorities were unable to fully go after the adult teacher, even though there were text, videos, and photos establishing the affair. The police chief talked about his extreme frustration that he had at the time because state laws did not provide for prosecuting the teacher in a way that would satisfy justice. So that is the overview of female teachers, sex, and students in the classroom. And basically, I think those 5 narratives are pretty much all inclusive of what you would most likely find when you get past convictions and you do what we call the breakdown of the individual. In this case, it would be the teacher. So now that we know that, wouldn't you suspect that we as a society should have in place curriculum in college that are teaching folks looking for those psychology diplomas to be able to, well, maybe provide a much better overview of teachers coming in new to the teaching system. In other words, we want to be able to weed these folks out. Sadly, though, again, as you've heard me say in many other shows, we do a horrible job with mental health in the United States. Horrible. It's really not good for the average person on the street, and if you're a veteran, it's even worse. So whenever you look in the future to vote for someone at the state or national level, please take into consideration where they are with regard to funding for mental health, because it is not there. Well, please remember that today's show dealt with women teachers only because that was the subject matter, and that's predicated on the current increase anyway, of female teacher promiscuity. And I'm sure down the road we're going to have a show that will detail male teachers and their behavioral issues associated to this subject. As always, we'd like to know what you think, so please visit us at thespearsyspin.blogspot.com and let us know what you think. Now, FYI, we will not be posting our newest shows until this coming Friday. Why? Well, we have no producer. Why no producer? The producer is on vacation. So, there you are. Remember, there's only one world. All of us have to live here. So, imagine going out today and making some new friends. Because when you have friends, it makes life a whole lot better. So, we will see everybody on Friday. As always, thanks for being with us. We'll see y'all Friday.